All right, what's up, Eric?
What's up, Caleb?
Are you excited for this?
I am. Yeah.
So this is our first podcast. I'm Caleb.
I'm Eric.
Yeah, we're both third year medical students, and we have so many conversations about like different companies, the future of like AI, machine learning, as it intersects with healthcare and research, and we just thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to
To
consolidate?
formalize this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So we decided let's pick a company, talk about it, and then we'll record a conversation. So this week we decided to talk about Cerner.
Yeah. So, yeah, most people think of Cerner and they're like, okay, that's like a EMR system, so electronic medical record system. And like the other big one that most people like kind of think of, right, Eric, is like it's like Epic.
Mm-hmm.
And those two are kind of like the giants in this space. And like on a practical level, Eric and I, we started on rotations this past week, so I mean we're interfacing with Cerner because that's what our parent, like the parent hospital for us, that's what they use, and so we have to learn to use the system well, and it's something we interact with every day. And we thought, hey, why not do an episode on Cerner and like all the way from its origin to what it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Cerner it was founded in '79 by three guys: Neil Patterson, Paul Gorp, and Cliff Illig. They worked for what was it?
Yeah, they worked for an accounting company. It was called, what was it called? I don't know. It's not important because it doesn't exist anymore. It was an accounting firm pretty much that they did consulting to and help people with like big corporations do their taxes and stuff. And it went under because it was consulting Enron, and that during that scandal, it went under because they were, I think, involved in some of the fraudulent stuff that happened. But anyway, like kind of going back to the story, in 1979, these three friends, they all had kind of a background in business, and they decided to come up with this company that then became Cerner. But I mean, what they developed at first, their first product, it was called PathNet.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of talk about what PathNet was, and why people, I guess, why a hospital want to buy it?
So when you go through med school, you learn about all the different diseases and how we figure out what's what, and there are a lot of different images or slides taken of cells that need to be recorded, and so it's a pretty big thing to be able to have all of a patient's pathology slides, all the cells from some whatever disease tissue they had, in one database, one system that could be referred back to, and that's the solution that PathNet offered, and so they started to try and have different hospitals adopt their software, and in '87 they had 70 sites using PathNet, and each year it grew. '88 they had 120, '89 170, and by the time it was 1990, there are 250 sites using PathNet.
Yeah, and that was really well said. I mean, I think like that growth that they saw in the 80s, it was kind of, they were meeting a need at the time where there was so much, all the documentation pretty much before Cerner in 1979, and actually Epic, which also started in 1979, it was all done by paper. It was all done by hand. And like if you lose a patient note, you're like, I mean, you're screwed because you don't have it anymore. I mean, so digitizing that was kind of inevitable. And Cerner was one of the first to start with, the first use case was with PathNet, looking at different pathology like Eric was describing, and kind of automating that process.
Yeah, and it also standardized things because, like one physician might like to do things one way and then another physician does things another way, but having everything on one electronic system, you have to, fill in whatever parameters the same way every single time. So this process of digitizing health information really helped standardize different protocols within a single hospital and even across different healthcare systems.
Yeah, and like what's interesting also is like these guys they were not physicians, so like they didn't know exactly what the problems that physicians face are. And I mean, if you generally ask like someone at a hospital, they get kind of they'll complain a lot about like the current state of electronic medical records, because I mean, can you want to describe like some of the things we see and like what are the historical problems were that
I mean,
providers faced?
Yeah, I like you and I experienced it this past week. Like you just, you go on the EHR and then, like you look at the screen and like there's not a single like bit of blank space. It's all like there have to be at least like 30, 40 different buttons to
Yes,
click.
well over.
Yeah, in your face at any given moment. So it's just like a lot to process when you look at things, and you compare it to like Instagram. You have your like five buttons at the bottom. Not that like you could ever cover all the information that comes with like taking care of a patient with a simple interface like Instagram. But there's it's still a lot to it's still quite overwhelming when you first adopt the system, and even when you're trying to like do things for multiple patients, it gets confusing.
Yeah, let's just say it's not very pleasant on the eyes. Yeah, and I think like I mean that just made me think like, why do you think it is that there's this discrepancy between like what the providers want and need versus like what's given? And I think that part of it is like I'm curious to hear what you say, but I think it's partly because just from the beginning, it wasn't necessarily the providers who were designing the system. It was like, I think from the outside, you don't know what's important for a provider exactly, like the pertinent information. So you kind of just want to give everything, right? And there's a I mean reason for that too. There's an argument like you don't, if they have everything, they could kind of sift through, and ultimately like Eric and I, we were talking about like how the residents are like, oh, click this tab, this is what you need, this is all you need, and like for your purposes. And so like I think it's like a fine balance between like just like doing too much and like a lot of it being irrelevant, and like just like making sure you have like everything you need, like the user experience versus like just like making sure you have everything.
Yeah, and we'd have to look more into this, but I wonder if there are also like legal and financial reasons.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For there
like
being
billing.
So many different like little buttons to pick, or whatever information that nobody ever looks at, being on every single patient's chart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so we talked a little bit about like in the 80s how Eric was talking about how they were expanding really fast to different sites, different hospitals. And I think a big milestone is in 1986 when the company went public. And so they were able to generate a lot of capital to further expand and actually go internationally. So one of the things we thought was kind of cool is that Cerner actually has the most amount of healthcare data on patients in the world. And you would think it might be Epic because Epic has more market share, like, or not market share, but like it has more of the market in terms of hospitals using their software within the U.S. But they have more U.S. data, patient data, but Cerner has more data overall.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and we'll talk about this later, but I'm sure that's a big reason why Oracle was excited to acquire them.
Yeah,
a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's worth talking about like, okay, so they had PathNet, and what other software did they start to develop after they carved this niche out of like PathNet, automating the pathology and digitizing it. But where did they go from there in terms of developing software?
Yeah, well, obviously medicine's a lot bigger than like the pathology slides that you get from biopsies and things like that. So they developed MedNet, Discern, RadNet, FarmNet, SurgeonNet, um, and those were all ways to, you know, tackle all the laboratory information that physicians would want. Um, and then from there, they moved on to like a comprehensive EMR where you were working with things like billing, appointments, just an all-in-one product, and that's what Caleb and I use today, and a lot of other physicians too.
Yeah, so they had this history of like being kind of disjointed with all these like disparate software for like pathology, for radiology, for surgery, and then they unified that with they called it Cerner Millennium, but that's what they did at the end in like around 1997, and it allowed it to be like an all-in-one kind of solution for digital records.
Yeah, I'm sure that was like a good model when physicians were not really familiar with computers. Like I remember some of the pathologists in the early days of Cerner, they'd say like, Neil was like a wizard to them because he knew how computers worked, and they really didn't. But in today's day and age where everybody knows how to use a computer, you want your EMR and all the other things that come with like admitting a patient all in one.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's like kind of put a bookmark on like the chronological order of what happened, and let's talk a little bit about Neil Patterson. You were telling me a little bit about his background. Can you talk about that?
He's an interesting guy. He's like people talk about him as like a very strong-willed businessman. He grew up on his family farm in Manchester, Oklahoma, and he stayed firm with his rural roots. In fact, his family. Are you familiar with American Royal?
Not really.
They're like a group that does like livestock shows, horse shows, rodeo, barbecue competitions, things like that. He was very involved in that, and his family is still involved in that. Cerner and Neil Patterson maintain their roots by staying based in Kansas City, kind of near where he grew up.
Kind of like how Epic with Judy Faulkner, she kind of just set up in Wisconsin where she's been her whole life. That's interesting. Yeah. So I think something funny that Eric and I were talking about was like there's like this infamous email that Neil Patterson like sent out to his management team, and I don't know. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So I guess he was concerned about the productivity of his employees. So one of the things he did was he went to the office building, the Cerner office building, in the wee hours of the morning and watched how the parking lot filled up, and then at the end of the day he looked at how full it was again, and that was his proxy for, I guess, how productive his employees were, and he wrote a very, very, very strongly worded email to, I think it was like 400 different managers in the company, saying that the parking lots are not full enough at 8 a.m. in the morning or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's your fault for not caring enough that your employees are like slacking off, I guess.
Yeah. And then like he like had threats in there for like layoffs and stuff like that, and then that got leaked, and then the stock price dropped 22%, I think, like in a week or something.
Yeah. Maybe like how full your parking lot is not a good proxy for how well your company's doing.
That's right.
but yeah, he, that was, I guess, a manifestation of his personality as a leader,
Yeah,
for better or worse.
and it's understandable, that like he comes from a background of business, like the productivity is important and like making money is important for him and the employees. But like what's interesting now is that it's run by pediatrician, pediatric psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was only recent too, actually. I mean, we'll get into that more. I mean, there's not too much more interesting that happens in the timeline from 1997 where we left off, where they upgraded to Cerner Millennium, until, would you say, about like
2015.
Yeah, 2015 with the DoD deal.
Yeah, they were mostly expanding to different sites until then. But I mean, what happens before 2015 seems a bit important, where they're in competition with Epic.
That's
and,
right.
Epic seemed to be winning over all of the larger hospitals,
Yeah.
all the larger hospital systems. And I don't know if that's happening to your company. You kind of say, okay, we need to pivot, and that's exactly what they did. And I guess they were already, like foreseeing that. I mean,
Yeah, and the pivot, I think the direction was kind of interesting because it was kind of a lifeline for them, where so what they did was, in the early 2000s, they paid like a reputable group, a nonprofit group called Rand Corp, who, like, historically Rand Corp has been giving advice on policy making for the government, with things like the space race, conflicts between different countries. And what they do is they're really good at crunching numbers. They have a lot of good data and predictive modeling, so they're a very trusted source for making decision making within the government. So pretty much they paid Rand Corp to do a sort of audit and kind of figure out and measure how much productivity and efficiency EMRs, like digitizing medical records, like Cerner was doing, one of the only people doing it at the time, like how much money they're saving the government. And I mean, Rand Corp came up with a number like they're saving them $81 billion a year, which is like, they walked back on that statement in another audit they did in like 2013. They're like, that was ridiculously inflated. But what that set the stage for was it allowed them to start getting government contracts, and one notably with the DoD. And do you want to talk about that deal?
Yeah, actually, Rand Corp, I think they were that's where the term think tank originated.
Oh yeah, because they
were the first think tank. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So the government, the DoD, was looking for an EMR company to digitize all of their health records, and
that's Department of Defense, by the way.
Yeah, Department of Defense. It was a competition between I think it was Epic, Allscripts, Cerner, and maybe another company. But either way, there was already this like, I guess, market that Cerner carved out for itself by having the Rand Corporation audit that issue. And so the thing about government contracts is you're not convincing a hospital or a hospital system to purchase your products. You're convincing the people in DC, and it turns out that that's a very different problem. So what Cerner did, which was very smart of them, is they partnered with Leidos, which is a consulting firm who had actually previously procured some contracts with the government. And at the time, everybody was thinking that Epic would win the contract. But because of I guess the savvy of Leidos, Cerner was able to beat out Epic. And this deal, it was an 18 billion deal over 9 years for 60 sites, and that comes out to about 20 million per site per year, which is pretty lucrative. Maybe not like a crazy deal, but Cerner didn't have to worry about competing with Epic for each one of these 60 sites.
Yeah.
So like it really said, okay, we're good for a while now.
Yeah, and it kind of speaks to like what their focus was on, because it seems like Cerner, they were making all these like partnerships and deals with like AWS later on, and like just kind of like networking with other groups to try to like market. They're focused less. It seems less on the development of their software as opposed to like Epic. Now we were talking about this earlier, but if you just look at some of the numbers, like the number of employees is 26,400 in 2020 at Cerner, but at Epic it's 13,000 in 2023, and you look at their revenue right now and it's like comparable. So why does Cerner have so many more employees? And Eric was telling me, you were saying like something about
Yeah,
like a lot.
Cerner just has like also a much larger sales and marketing division. So they're putting in a lot of work to just get their name out there, and they find value in that versus Epic, who keeps things a little more compact. And
I think it's 49%, like no, 51% of the shares are family owned within the Faulkner's family. It's just crazy.
yeah,
They didn't do an IPO like Cerner. So they're very much more regulated, like, and that quality control is there.
yeah.
So I think the next thing, like, that's kind of notable is, would you say, Eric, in like 2020, around then, they have kind of this overhaul with their leadership at Cerner. They hired 3 new C-suite executives, and eventually they hire the next year David Feinberg, Dr. David Feinberg, who like we said, he's a pediatric psychiatrist.
Yeah, so he became president in 2021, and I guess that was the first step in Cerner's transformation. The same year they were acquired by Oracle, so they were moving towards what it seems like consolidating all the health data they have onto one database, because you go to one doctor at one clinic, and then you go to another doctor at another hospital. It's a bit of a pain in the butt to like have the other doctor look at your other medical records.
Yeah, that's right. And Oracle is like such a big company, and they have so much history working with like data and relational databases. They actually, I think they came up with SQL and then the free version MySQL. But yeah, like that's exactly right. And I mean, we'll talk more about like what our expectations are, like in the aftermath of this acquisition, because it only happened like not that long, like 2022.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Oracle has so much more experience, it seems, or different experience and expertise with handling data, and Cerner has the most amount of patient data in the world. So like that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Oracle, they started out. Well, first of all, the CEO of Cerner or of Oracle is Larry Ellison. He and a couple friends, they read about IBM's new relational databases in the 70s, and they said, okay, let's make our own version of that. So they developed a version of that, and so their product was just having databases that their clients could store a bunch of info in and then easily access that info. And they spent a lot of their company history developing that product and then acquiring other companies that do something similar. So they really wanted to corner the market on relational databases for different data types.
That's right. And Eric and I, like, we worked on some like research projects together, like different research projects using machine learning and AI, and a lot of what goes, people don't realize this, but a lot of what goes into that research is you have to clean the data sets and make sure that all the variables have the right type and things like that. You have to work with different tables and like see how do you merge these different tables, and it's a pretty complex problem. So SQL is actually one of the best relational database languages. So in order to fetch the data you want that's relevant to what you're trying to do. So the fact that Oracle created like what is probably one of the best relational database languages, and Cerner, their language that they use is like called CCL, but it's modeled based off of SQL. So the fact that they're merging with this company, it seems like it's going to add, like it could be beneficial in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, efficiency, and that you'd have so many more capabilities with like a central database with everybody's healthcare, as long as it's secure. Like, I mean, we talked about the issue of like going to different health facilities and having to transfer your medical records over, but also doing something like clinical trials. If you do a clinical trial across different health facilities, you have to have somebody reporting from each health facility all the different results you get. But if everything were centralized, you could just have one person, one place, and they could be looking at every single participant's records and results at will. And so having a company like Oracle come and work with Cerner could be really big.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like so at this time, like 2021, 22, they're going through this transition that's kind of taking them in a new direction. That's, we think, it could be great, right? Better technology, better efficiency. And then they also had this turnover with management, and who ended up becoming president. They appointed Dr. David Feinberg, and he was okay. So just a little bit about his background. He child psychiatrist, like we said, and he worked at a place called Geisinger, which is known for like innovation and top management for healthcare like systems. And then he jumped around a lot. Like he went over to doing management over at UCLA, their health systems. I think he was like president or CEO of their health systems. And then he jumped over to Google Health, which is a subsidiary of Google, where they're trying to get more involved with healthcare. And he talked about, I think in an interview, he talked about how he learned some what they're doing with like AI and machine learning with patient data. But then now he became part of the leadership at Cerner in 2021 at the end of the year, and after they got acquired the next year, like right there, he just made like around like $30 million. Is it?
I'm not sure.
Something like that, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he is now at the he's kind of like leading a lot of the efforts now, and we were just talking, Eric and I were talking about how like some of the topics that he's interested in and some of the focus in the direction that he wants the company to go from the lens of an actual provider, which I think is pretty interesting. So two of the top focuses he's been talking about recently in interviews and whatnot is one is cybersecurity and the other is AI. And two things that Eric and I talk a lot about. Yeah. So Eric, what do you think about like the direction in terms of AI? Like, what is the potential with electronic medical records? What could we potentially see, and what do we like kind of hope for from our end as people being trained using EMRs?
I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where you kind of have to wait and see, because the two things that that seem to drive the the efficacy of like any machine learning model are like data. You want more data and computing power. So the more data and the more computing power you have, uh, the more useful your models are. And I think health data in particular is so tricky because you have to make sure everything's HIPAA compliant, and you have to be so concerned about the cybersecurity of all that data. So having a company like Oracle, I mean, tech companies have been trying to really break into the healthcare field for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Having a company like Oracle just come in and purchase somebody that's already, um, you know, that's already aggregated so much healthcare data is promising.
Yeah. And I think like maybe we could just go through like provides like a high level overview of like what kind of ways AI is bound to impact the healthcare system. And like I think one we were talking about like generative AI and how ChatGPT kind of opened a lot of people's eyes to how like using their technology, using their API and integrating that within an EMR system. Like Epic already announced that they're working with OpenAI to integrate their API into the EMR, so that one of the biggest time sinks for doctors is they have to document everything they see, not only for like taking care of the patients, but honestly mainly for a lot of it is for billing purposes. But it's a lot of writing, and a lot of this can be improved with generative AI.
Yeah, and there's actually Microsoft, in the same year that Oracle acquired Cerner, Microsoft acquired this group, this company called Nuance, and
Yeah.
Nuance has some products that deal with that problem precisely, the problem of ambient documentation. So with their products, what they're hoping is that physician could just go into a room, talk to a patient, have something recording, and then whatever your device records, it just spits it out in an organized way onto a note, and then the physician can edit as he or she pleases.
Mhm.
And like we're working with doctors and residents now, and like they're zipping all over the place for like 9 hours straight. They'd be lucky if they get lunch, trying to like see the patient and then like write down every single little thing that they see.
Mm-hmm.
And it provides an opportunity for you to think about what's going on with the patient. But at the same time, like it seems like the residents and physicians are like just they could use a tool to alleviate some of the burden of like typing every little thing you see up.
Yeah. And I think something big you pointed out is like the future of AI is more likely to be, and this is also what Patterson said, or Feinberg said, it's more likely that we're going to be using AI tools and then adjusting them. They're going to do the bulk of the work, like maybe organizing the note based on a conversation. Like it's smart enough to figure out what's pertinent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be the ones to adjust based on like the output. And that kind of like symbiotic, the synergistic sort of working together with an AI system is probably going to be the future, rather than like, AI is going to take over. It's not like, I think that's a little unfounded, that kind of claim, but yeah, I think you brought up that good point. And it's even like that for these imaging models for like radiology. We could talk about another use case, like predicting where different cancer lesions or organ structures are. These computer vision models are very good at that, and they're not perfect though. Like being able to adjust where the boundaries are and whatnot, that's always going to be something that radiologists will have to do. Like the systems aren't perfect. Like ChatGPT hallucinates and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. People hallucinate as well, but
that's right.
Hopefully
that's
between
right.
the two, that one of us gets it right.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, they're like there's so many cool different things that could come from a company like Oracle having access to all the health data um, that Cerner has accumulated over the years.
Yeah, and I think we talked enough about like AI, but let's talk a little bit about like the cybersecurity, which is also a hot topic and what Feinberg seemed to be emphasizing in a lot of his talks. Is it's like there's been like a crazy amount of upticks in terms of cybersecurity attacks on healthcare systems, and like you'd be kind of curious, like why does someone want to know what my cholesterol or blood pressure is, right? It's like not really that helpful, but a lot like what we're learning is that like a lot of these bad actors, or what they want is not necessarily the information about people, like their blood pressure and whatnot, but they want to know their billing information and their identity they want to use to like
For fraud,
yeah, for fraud.
Yeah, it's and that's another thing, that's another point of concern that you might have when you're centralizing healthcare data, because right now, like if you get access to like one healthcare system, it's difficult to look at another site that's using Cerner, right?
Yeah.
But if you have like a master patient list with every single patient that's ever been taken care of a provider that uses Cerner, that might pose a problem, and that's probably one of the things that's causing Oracle or whatever other entity to proceed with caution.
Yeah. It's really actually practically important for and relevant to us too, I feel like, and like practicing doctors, because my dad said that in Chicago, one of the health systems that he works with through Northwestern, they got a cybersecurity attack, and it cost the hospital so much money, and it shut down everything for a whole day. And if you think about it, like it shuts down the ER, like the ER, all the different like specialties, like it causes, the implications are huge, and it's like people's lives are at risk. So cybersecurity is so important, and there's also a lot of claims that these bad actors, once they have information, they're successfully like getting bribes out of the hospitals to just be quiet, and like not for the bad actors to not share that information. So it's like it's concerning, I think. So
Is that what happened with the Northwestern outage?
I'm not sure if it was that case, but I saw some reports about it, and actually Feinberg talked about it too. But I think the overall direction that he's taking Cerner as like having one shoe as a provider, but also he is like an MBA, so like he has a little bit of both with the business and provider perspective. So I think that's a kind of healthy balance. And yeah, what do you think about like that direction, that the direction that he's probably going to take the company?
I mean, the things that they're talking about, I think are pretty promising. I really want to see what it looks like for somebody to be able to go to like whatever hospital, and there's no issue with them, like communicating what's going on with the doctor, because all the records are already there. And also for some of these clinical investigators to be running projects, maybe like across the world at a much like at a lesser cost, because they don't have to coordinate too much with different providers. They can just take a look at what's being written in the charts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited. I think it'll take a while, because everything moves so slowly when it comes to like healthcare data. But I'm excited.
Yeah, likewise. All right, is there anything else that you think we missed?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, Eric and I this is something we're really passionate about, just tech and medicine, and both software, hardware. We'll talk more about like hardware depending on whether it's relevant to the company we're talking about, but that's how we're generally going to structure this podcast.
Yeah. So we're excited for future episodes.
Awesome. It was nice talking to you, Eric, and happy Easter again.
Yeah, good talking to you too. Happy Easter.